In this lecture, we are going to discuss what privacy managers or privacy directors do. What are their major responsibilities? We will start with some general notes and goals for managers, and then look at a list of specific responsibilities. So it's important to understand that this general list of responsibilities that we're going to look at later is really going to be contingent on the organization. One of the most general objectives or responsibilities of a program manager is going to be to align the business objectives with privacy, not to prohibit those business objectives. And so if you're working for a data broker, for example, and data brokers are all about collecting massive amounts of personal data on individuals and organizations, well, that's the business's objectives. That's how they make money. And so as a privacy manager at a data broker, what should you do? Clearly, we don't want to close off all collection and processing of personal data by a data broker, because then they're not going to be able to do their job and you are going to be out of a job. And so instead, how can you align privacy best practices with the business's objectives? Now, that's an extreme example. I'm not even sure how active a privacy program might be in a data broker, but nevertheless, you don't want to be an agent of no, right? You want to make sure that the business can carry out its objectives while also protecting, to the best of your ability, the personal information of individuals, whether those are employees or the public or both. Now, some general goals for a privacy program director or manager are as follows. Number one, of course, you want to define the privacy program's objectives for the organization. You are going to be the trend setter. What is the program's mission, its vision, what are its core values and principles? And you want to communicate all of that to the organization. Once the stage is set for privacy, your primary responsibilities are likely going to be tied to identifying and mitigating risk. And one of the early lectures in Domain 3 is going to be talking about the different types of risk, and so I'm going to leave that there. We'll return to it very soon. In furthering the objectives of identifying and mitigating risk, you're going to help to develop, implement, and audit policies and procedures concerning the handling of personal data. This is all part of identifying and mitigating risk. And as we've discussed when we were talking about building our team, you want to make sure that your organization, the privacy office, is providing training and awareness throughout the organization. Remember that having the most well-written, most robust, most fantastic, sparkly privacy policy is really all for naught if that policy is not being followed and implemented. And training and awareness throughout the organization, meeting folks where they are, that's really going to be very important in helping you to implement your policy. Now, with all of that foregrounded, we're going to look on this and the next two slides at some specific responsibilities for privacy program managers/directors. Remember, this is really going to be contingent on the type of organization that you're working at. Specific responsibilities include creating, publishing, and updating policies, privacy notices, and procedures, managing the organization-wide privacy governance program or body, collaborating cross-functionally throughout the organization, incident response, attending to information requests. These may be a legal request, such as a data subject access request, or it could be just from a customer exercising their rights under the GDPR, exercising their rights to access and amend their data. Managers are also responsible for implementing and auditing privacy controls and ensuring that those controls, or at least the applicable subset of controls, is adhering to privacy by design principles. Assessing and mitigating risk, which we've talked about, and in Domain 3, we're going to talk about privacy impact assessments in more detail. Continuous system monitoring. Remember that an assessment, such as a privacy impact assessment, is not a one and done activity, meaning that you're not going to do that assessment once and then forget about it. You're going to come back at regular intervals, perhaps on an annual basis, to reassess the system. At the very least, you would connect with the system owner and you would say, hey, has anything changed? Are you collecting any new data, or have the processes changed substantially in the last year? If not, then you might just do an overview of some of the privacy controls to make sure that they are being implemented effectively. You will also be responsible for identifying, tracking, and communicating privacy metrics, and we're going to talk a lot more about metrics later in the course. You are also going to monitor the domestic and international legal and regulatory landscape. Are there any new laws that, were they to be enacted, would severely impact your organization or your privacy program? If so, how should you respond? Is it necessary to prepare ahead of time? You also want to monitor technological changes and trends. Are there any new tools that would be useful to your organization? And finally, internal and external reporting. Internal in the sense that, perhaps you're working at a local office. Your large organization is a decentralized organization, and so you need to coordinate with a headquarters office, for example. That would be an example of internal reporting. With regards to external reporting, this may be a regulator or an auditor who is coming and requesting compliance documentation or artifacts. In this lecture, we have looked at some of the major responsibilities that are carried out by privacy managers/directors. Remember that specific responsibilities are going to be contingent on the organization and where you are in that organization. Is this a centralized governance model and you're at headquarters, or is this a decentralized model and you're at one of the local sites? A general rule of thumb is that you want to align the privacy program with the business's objectives, not prohibit those objectives. The general goals for a manager are going to be to define the privacy program's objectives for the organization, to identify and mitigate risk, to develop, implement, and audit policies and procedures concerning the handling of personal data, and provide privacy-related training and awareness throughout the organization. And here's the long laundry list of specific responsibilities that we just went over. I'm not going to reread them here. Of course, you can always hit pause and review these at your leisure.